Hello everyone, welcome back to Up Late with Ivy. I am your host, Ivy Rush, and I'm so excited that you've come back, or if this is your first time, welcome to the channel. I've got a double feature for you tonight. I had two shorter stories that I really wanted to include, and they were just too short to have their own video, but I really wanted to do them, so I've put them both in this video, and I'm really excited to read them. Let's get into it. I found an old Monopoly game. It has strange rules. By Ancient Baseball 752. Eli was a board game aficionado, a connoisseur of cardboard and dice, with a collection that rivaled any local game store. His passion for games was only rivaled by his love for video games, but there was something uniquely satisfying about the tactile experience of rolling dice and moving pieces on a colorful board. One rainy afternoon, while rummaging through a dusty thrift shop in a forgotten corner of town, he stumbled upon an old Monopoly game. The box was battered, the colors faded, but something about it called to him. He paid the shopkeeper a few crumpled bills and hurried home, eager to add it to his growing collection. As he opened the box, the familiar scent of aged cardboard wafted up, mingling with a hint of something musty. Inside, he found the usual components: the board, the tokens, the money, and the chance and community chest cards. But there was a stack of yellowed papers tucked away at the bottom. Curious, Eli pulled them out and began to read. 5 strange rules were scrawled in an uneven hand. The banker is eternal. The banker must never leave the table. If they do, the game ends in chaos. The shadows move. If a player lands on a property, they must roll a die. On a roll of 1, the shadows of the room will come to life. The price of Monopoly. If a player goes bankrupt, they must forfeit a memory to the game. The unseen player. At least one player must remain silent throughout the game. If they speak, they become the unseen player. The final roll. The game ends when one player rolls a double 6, but beware, for the last player to roll doubles will never leave the table. Eli chuckled at the absurdity of the rules. They felt like a gimmick, but he was intrigued. He invited his friends, Mia, Jake, and Sarah, over for a game night. As they gathered around the table, Eli explained the peculiar rules, laughing at how ridiculous they sounded. "Come on, it's just a game," he said, setting the pieces up. "What's the worst that could happen?" The friends rolled their eyes, but agreed to play, eager to see how Eli's latest find would unfold. As they played, the atmosphere shifted. The dim light of the room flickered, and the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally across the walls. They laughed off the eerie feeling, attributing it to their overactive imaginations. It was Mia who first landed on the boardwalk. "All right, roll the die," she said, her voice bright with competitive spirit. She rolled a 3. "Nothing happens," Jake said, smirking. "You're safe." But then Eli, feeling a strange compulsion, rolled a 1 on his turn. The shadows in the room thickened, coiling and twisting like smoke. A chill swept through the air, and the laughter died in their throats. "Did you feel that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes wide. Just a draft, Eli said, trying to shake off the unease. As the game continued, the atmosphere grew heavier. Jake landed on Park Place and rolled a 4. "Looks like I'm safe too," he said, but his voice trembled slightly. Then it was Sarah's turn. She landed on a chance space and drew a card. "What does it say?" Mia asked, leaning forward. "You owe the bank $50, Sarah read, her voice quaking. "That's easy enough." But as she reached for her token, the lights flickered again, and the shadows began to shift. Eli felt a prickling sensation on the back of his neck. "Hey, did anyone else see that?" he asked, glancing around the table. "See what?" Mia replied, her brow furrowed. "Never mind." The game continued, but the tension was palpable. Jake, growing increasingly anxious, finally broke the silence rule. "This is stupid, I'm done," he shouted, slamming his fist on the table. Instantly, the air grew cold, and the shadows surged forward, coiling around him like serpents. His face paled, and he gasped, "What's happening?" "Jake, don't!" Eli warned, but it was too late. The shadows consumed him, pulling him down into darkness. "Jake!" Sarah screamed, but her voice echoed hollowly in the room. With panic rising, Eli grabbed the dice and rolled desperately, hoping to end the madness. He rolled a 6. The shadows receded, and Jake was gone, leaving only a faint whisper behind. "Where did he go?" Mia cried, her eyes darting around the room. "We have to finish the game," Eli said, his voice trembling. "It's the only way." They pressed on, each turn feeling like a descent into a nightmare. Sarah landed on a property and rolled a 1. The shadows returned, swirling around her, and Eli felt a tug in his chest. "No, not you too!" But it was too late. The shadows enveloped her, and she vanished, leaving only silence in her wake. Mia and Eli were the last two left, their hearts pounding in their chests. They exchanged terrified glances. "Let's just get through this," Eli said, his voice barely a whisper. Mia rolled next, landing on a community chess space. "What now?" "Draw a card," Eli urged, his hands shaking. She pulled a card, her eyes widening in horror. "It says I must forfeit a memory." "No, you can't," Eli shouted, but the shadows danced eagerly around them, waiting for her decision. "I have to," Mia cried, tears streaming down her face. "I can't let it take me." With a trembling hand, she placed the card on the table, and Eli felt a wrenching sensation in his mind. Images began to fade, memories of their childhood, laughter, and joy, erasing everything they had shared. "Eli, I can't remember," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "Just roll, please," Eli begged, desperation clawing at him. Mia rolled, and the die tumbled across the table, landing on a 3. The shadows shrieked in fury, swirling violently around them. "You can't escape," they hissed, voices echoing from every corner of the room. Eli, feeling the weight of despair, rolled the dice one last time. "Please, just let this end," he pleaded. The die rolled and rolled, finally landing on a double 6. A deafening roar erupted as the shadows converged, and Eli felt himself being pulled down into the abyss. He reached for Mia, but she was already lost, her face a mask of terror. The game was over. The table lay empty, the board scattered with pieces, and the room was silent once more. The old Monopoly game sat there, waiting for its next players, with the strange rules still etched onto the yellowed papers. And in the shadows of the room, a whisper lingered, echoing the memories of those who had dared to play. Welcome to the game of shadows. My Daughter Hasn't Been the Same Since the Accident, by PEBBLEWITCH. Sorry, I didn't know where else to turn for help. My daughter hasn't been the same since the car accident last month. She used to be your typical happy-go-lucky kindergartner. As long as you didn't run out of snacks, she didn't run out of joy. Sure, she'd get cranky if she went to bed late or had too much time on her tablet. Mostly, she was a little ray of sunshine, bouncing around the house, humming tone-deaf songs with the confidence only a small child could muster. But not since the accident. It wasn't really that serious, just a simple right turn, a horn, glass, airbag. My nose felt like it shattered. Honestly, that was the worst of it for me. Sophia was in the back seat, asleep in her booster. She barely stirred. The ambulance came, and the medic took a look at us both. They said since Sophia was a minor, they had to take her in for observation. At the hospital, they had me wait out in the waiting room while they checked her over, and let me know it would be best if they kept her overnight. I watched as they wheeled her off to another room, her sweet little hand poking out from the blankets. I never should have let her out of my sight. When I picked her up the next morning, she was quiet and withdrawn, but happy to see me. She wrapped her little arms and legs around me, almost as if clinging on for dear life. "It's okay, sweetie," I soothed as I twisted back and forth in our embrace. "So, do I just go home? Do I need to sign her out?" I asked a passing nurse, fumbling through the procedure. She just gave a cold stare for daring to interrupt her. "You can go home," she said finally, eyeing me as though I were an insect. I carried Sophia out of the hospital and got onto the bus to go home. The nurse, with her cold blue eyes, created a feeling of unease and soured the rest of the day. Sophia was a little quiet when we got home and didn't have much of an appetite. Still, I left out some carrot sticks and Teddy Grahams for her to nibble on if she was up for it. I had to get a car, and maybe that's why I didn't notice her strange behavior at first. My insurance didn't cover very much of the vehicle replacement. In fact, it barely covered any. I guess that's what happens when you can only afford the bare minimum. I scoured online, called dealerships, and finally, when I had found the car, I scheduled an appointment to go in and test drive it. I texted my ex-husband to pick up Sophia. It was his custody weekend, and as usual, he wasn't answering his texts, and he wasn't here to get her. Sophia was so good at the dealership. She sat quietly through the paperwork and didn't fuss when the credit check took nearly 45 minutes. Normally, she'd be melting down, screaming for my phone, and complaining about how hungry she was. But she must have understood the importance of getting this car for us. I told the salesman I'd need a car seat for Sophia before I could drive it. He looked confused for a moment. It was true that Sophia was just about on the threshold of no longer needing it, but safety is important to me, I said in earnest. He gave his salesman smile and had one of his assistants purchase a booster seat for Sophia so we could drive the car home. It wasn't pink like she wanted, but she could put stickers on it later if she chose. I strapped her in and sat in the driver's seat. The accident had left me nervous. I looked in the rearview mirror at Sophie. Then I took a deep breath and exhaled. I twisted the key and started the car. The ride home was quiet. Sophia must have been feeling my fear of driving again. I quickly spoke up. "Would you like some music, honey?" I said, forcing a smile. I had to be brave for her. Fear can rub off on your children, make them grow up to be dysfunctional. "I like this car better," she stated, like it was a fact, not a feeling. "Yeah? That's great. Me too. What do you like about it?" I asked cheerily. But that was all she had to say the rest of the ride. When we got in, I fixed her a sandwich cut into triangles the way she likes it. "You were so good today, sweetie," I purred as I stroked her cheek. "Would you like some Oreos with your sandwich?" Finally, a smile. She nodded. Relieved, I got her 4 little cookies and put them on the plate next to her sandwich. "Okay, try to eat at least some of your sandwich first." I kissed her on the head and walked over to my room out of sight and earshot. I called my ex-husband again and shut the door before leaving him a message on his answering machine. "Look, Connor, today was your custody day. If you want to be a father, act like one. It's fine if you don't want to see me, but Sophia doesn't deserve to be disappointed by you every time." I tossed my phone down on the bed in disgust. Where did I go wrong with him? We used to be happily married. He was an involved father while we were together. Now he won't even speak to me. Or her. I guess divorce brings out the worst in people. I took a breath and walked back out to the kitchen area where Sophia was sitting. She'd lined her Oreos and Teddy Grahams into a perfect straight line across the table. Now the carrot sticks, one by one, exactly spaced. "Hey, let's eat our food instead of playing with it, okay?" I went over and started to pick up an Oreo. "Or I'm going to eat this." "Don't!" she said sharply, her glare bearing into me. Her sweet eyes now cold and sharp. Stunned, I didn't even know what to say. It wasn't the normal childish way of yelling at a parent to stop. This was filled with cold, simmering rage. A chill went down my spine. "Okay, sweetie," I said, putting the Oreo back down. "I was just playing. I wouldn't really eat your cookie." Her only answer was a scowl as she fixed the Oreo back into the line, as though she were more upset about the fact that I disturbed her meticulous order than the fact that I was going to eat it. She still hadn't really eaten anything. I would call the doctor in the morning. A wave of guilt washed over me. Maybe the car accident was more traumatizing for her than I realized. We watched her favorite movie together before bed. She just stared at the screen. Normally she laughed and quoted the movie while the characters said their lines and sang along with their songs. Not tonight, though. Tonight was just eerie silence as she stared blankly at the TV. I tucked her into bed and gave her a kiss on the forehead. "Ooh, you're cold," I said as I put an extra blanket on her and gave her an Eskimo kiss. "I'll just have to snuggle you up, warm as a bug." She just stared at me, unblinking. Unsettled, I sat up on her bedside. "Hey, honey, I know you had a long day, and it must have been really scary to be in that little accident. Do you want to talk about it?" She continued to stare for a moment. "Daddy can't stand the sight of you." The level of vitriol made my stomach turn as I involuntarily jerked back. "What?" was all I could stammer out. "You ruined everything," she hissed at me, her eyes pure hatred. Unable to gain my composure, I stammered that those words weren't very nice before standing up. "Good night, Mommy," she said sweetly, my little girl again, holding her hands out for a hug. I gave her a hesitant hug and a kiss on the cheek. "Sweet dreams, Cupcake. I want us to practice our kind words, okay?" I tucked the blankets up to her chin and left her to dreamland. I turned the thermostat up a couple degrees for Sophia. Connor must have been talking to her. Where else would she get that anger, those accusations? I picked up my phone and saw that I finally got a text back from him. "Stop contacting me." That was it. I didn't get any sleep that night. The next morning, she was sitting on her bed, staring at the wall, silently. I called up her pediatrician. She wasn't listed as a patient anymore. She had been removed from the practice. Who removed her? I demanded. It looks like it was at the request of the father. I'm sorry. We can do a walk-in if you like. The electronic distorted voice tried reassuringly. Why would Connor remove her? He was so fucking spiteful. Quelling my anger, I got Sophia in the car, buckled her into her booster seat, and nervously sat in the driver's seat. I could feel the cold terror as I sat there. This car just made me feel claustrophobic, and the seatbelt trapped me into it. I looked into the rearview mirror at Sophia. Deep breath, exhale. Turn the key and drive. I got her to the doctor's office and walked up to the receptionist. Hi, we used to be a patient here. We still are, I said almost frantically. The receptionist just smiled, that sweet smile young nurses do. Okay, no problem. We can get you back in the system. Great. Sophia's been quiet and acting a little off. We had an accident the other night. Nothing serious, but she had to stay for observation. For good measure. But, she's not eating or playing, really, I said, starting to ramble. All right, we'll check her out. Her name? The receptionist said sweetly. Sophia Brown, I said. I was going to kill Connor later. Why would he do this to her? It was one thing to take me off his insurance, but removing Sophia from the doctors? I hated him with every fiber of my being in that moment. Birth date? The receptionist frowned, snapping me out of my train of thought. I rattled off her birth date and address, the receptionist getting more uneasy as I did. Is she here? She asked, looking concerned. Yes, she's right. I looked over. She was gone. Sophia? I looked frantically around the office. She must have gotten outside, I said as I ran off. I could feel the panic welling up in my chest. The receptionist was making a call as I ran down the hallway and out to the parking lot. She was gone. I was about to call the police when I saw her sitting in the car, buckled up, ready to leave. I flung the door open. Sophia! I shouted angrily. She didn't react. Sophia, why did you leave? I demanded. She was looking pale. I didn't leave, she protested in her sweet little voice. A police car pulled up and an officer got out. Ma'am? Samantha Brown? He asked. A knot formed in my stomach. Why would he know my name? Yeah, I'm here to get my daughter looked at, I trailed off as I gestured at the car. You need to leave the premises, he continued, unfazed. But my daughter, I said, feeling the rage bubble in me. His expression made it clear he wasn't going to budge. What had Connor told them about me? Please, I just need to get my daughter looked at. She's sick, I said, pleading to a face showing no signs of pity. If you don't remove yourself from the premises, I will have to take you in, he said with an unreadable expression. It was clear I wasn't getting past him. I didn't argue. I couldn't be arrested. What would they do with Sophia? Why wouldn't he listen to me? I got in the car and slammed the door shut. The ceiling felt lower, the walls pressed in. I put my hands on the wheel and saw them shaking as a wave of anxiety crashed over me. Deep breath, exhale. Turn the key and drive. I looked in the mirror at Sophia. She was quiet and expressionless. You can't do that, Sophia. You can't leave me like that, I said, failing to hide the tremor in my voice. We rode in silence for a moment. I'm hungry, she finally piped up. I started laughing with relief and pulled into a 7-Eleven. Okay, what do you want? I said, unbuckling her. Oreos, she chirped. We walked into the store and she squeezed my hand. I promise I won't leave you again, Mommy. We got our snacks, Oreos for her and a soda for me. I got her back in her seat and felt the cold dread as I stared at the driver's side door. I did not want to get into that metal coffin. I could feel the nausea welling up in my throat. With a shaky hand, I got back into the driver's seat, swallowing hard. Deep breath. Exhale. Turn the key. Just turn the key. Drive. We made it home. Sophia didn't really eat more than a bite of her Oreos, but that was still something. She was still looking pale. "Honey, you really need to eat something," I said gently. Sophia only shrugged. "Okay, we'll try a different doctor tomorrow," I said, wrapping a blanket around her. I sent a barrage of angry texts to my ex-husband, demanding to know what he told the police, the doctor. Our girl needed medical attention, and he was playing these stupid games of his. I got no response. I didn't expect one. It was much later that night that I got a knock on my door. It was a police officer handing me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Evening, ma'am. I'm here to deliver a restraining order. You are not to contact or to be within 200 feet of Connor Brown," he said sternly. "A what?" I spluttered out. "I haven't done anything." The officer handed me the envelope. "Do you understand what this means, Miss Brown?" "I didn't do anything," I screeched, the panic welling up in me. "My daughter needs medical attention. My ex-husband is blocking me from her pediatrician." The officer just looked at me, coldly. "Miss Brown, your daughter passed away 2 years ago. You were the driver. Blood alcohol was above the legal limit." He let the weight of his words settle down around me. "You're not allowed within 200 feet of Mr. Brown." I could feel the walls of my house close in around me as my heart slammed into my chest. No, no, no. He was fucking with me. Sophia's right there," I said between panicked gasps. This was a sick joke. I slammed the door and waited for the officer to leave. I don't know what Connor told him, but he must have been convincing enough for them to ignore sweet Sophia, standing right behind me. I grabbed her and put her in the car. "We're getting out of here," I told her. "Just me and you." I forced myself into the driver's seat, fighting every instinct to just run away from the damn heap of metal. No, we need to leave. If Connor can convince them to put a restraining order on me, what else can he convince them? With shaky hands, I frantically turned the keys. Nothing. They didn't move. That's right. I picked up the little black box attached to my wheel. Deep breath. Exhale. The box beeped. Blood alcohol 0.00. Turn the key. Drive. I left my house that night. Sophia still isn't eating, and Connor has convinced every hospital to turn me away. None of them will see Sophia. They look at her and tell me to sit down, ask me to leave, ask if I have a history of mental illness. I know what the police reports say. I've read them, but they're wrong. I know what I see. My Sophia is right here. I can feel her in my arms when I hug her. I can hear her when she breathes. I can see her sweet, innocent eyes looking up at me when I hold her hand. Please, someone help me. She's cold again. I'll wrap her up warm and try another clinic tomorrow. Someone has to see her. I hope you enjoyed the 2 stories from tonight's double feature. I really enjoyed the Monopoly story because I thought it was an interesting take on this old game that I found that kind of is prevalent through so many creepypastas, going way back into the 2000s and 2010s. So I really enjoyed reading that one. And then the second one, that one stood out to me because I love plot twists like that. And it really, I did not see that one coming the first time I read it. So I really enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And remember, it's only a story. See you later.